Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm back with another interview, and I'm here with John Cooney. John, how are we?
Good, thanks. Very good. Thank you very much. Yeah, just finished training, so all is good.
Good to hear, okay, and so am I right in saying you're a 26-year-old super featherweight who's 6-0?
Yeah, that's it. That's correct. Yeah.
Great, okay, well, if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, I'm going to start off with the question which you always like to ask: why did you start boxing?
I started boxing mainly just because I guess I was an aggressive kid. I was very into sports and stuff like that, and I grew up in London, and just I guess growing up in London, when you're an excited kid with a lot of energy, you can get yourself into trouble. So I used to find myself in a few fights and stuff, and I just thought I'd prefer to be quite good at it than not good at it, sort of thing. And I watched a few Rocky films, the usual stuff, So I was asking my parents to get into it. It took them a while of convincing, and then I did. And then when I kind of did, I fell in love with it. It took me a year or two to fall in love with it, but when I did, then that was it. Yeah.
Definitely, that's great. And so, do you remember what happened in your first amateur fight?
Yeah, I fought in Southampton. I fought a kid from Portsmouth. I stopped him it was either the second round or the third round.
Wow.
I just caught him with a few big left hands, and I think I was about 14. I think I was about 14 years old, and obviously at that age, when you're taking heavy shots, and I think I busted your man's nose. Not bad or anything like that, really bad, but I remember there being a trickle of blood, and the ref stopped it and wiped his nose, and then I jumped on him straight away and started hitting him again. And obviously at that age, the refs stop fights quite easy, don't they? In the amateurs. So yeah.
Of course. And so, kind of from your whole amateur period, what would you say was your biggest achievement?
Biggest achievement probably would have been getting to the semi-finals of the ABAs. I boxed a kid called Billy Beer, who at the time was quite renowned. He was, I think, what age were we? We were about 16. Was under 57 kilos. He would have been one of the hottest kids in the country at the time. He was boxing for Repton, right. And I'd only just kind of it was my first national championships, and I'd only had nine amateur fights, and I got to the semi-finals, and I met him, and a lot of people were kind of saying I probably shouldn't fight him, and he was too experienced. He'd boxed for England, he'd won 2 national titles before, all this sort of stuff. But obviously, me being me, I said, no, I just want to fight him. I don't care. Do you know, I'm here. I got here. I'm going to fight. And yeah, I give him a good 50-50 fight. I even think to this day that I could have just nicked it. But again, with him having the name that he had and being from Repton, the exclusive Repton club and stuff like that, I was just a little kid, random kid that nobody knew about, so they swayed to him. But that was probably my best achievement as an amateur, because of how I was being wrote off, and everyone afterwards, everyone even from his own club who was coming up to me like, I've never seen him in a fight like that 50-50, fair play to you, because obviously no one had heard of me or seen me before either. So yeah, that was probably, but it's not great when your best achievement's losing, is it? But as an amateur, that was probably it, yeah.
Definitely. And is that kind of mindset of always just, or not kind of ducking away from the tough fights, kind of been something you've taken into the pro game?
100%. I mean, it's early days yet. Like we said, I'm only 6-0, so I'm not calling out world champions or anything. But if a fight is presented, like you hear in boxing a lot of the time, even at the lower levels, we say domestic levels, certain levels, you hear of fighters turning down fights, and they always say, like, everyone seems to have an excuse, or the time isn't right, or the money isn't right. And unfortunately in boxing, you have a coach, you have a manager, and they're there for a reason, to protect you and look after you and guide your career. And normally they're there for a reason, because if you're a proper fighter, you would take any fight at any time, and I definitely, that is something though that I definitely will bring into the pro game, the fact that I will fight anyone, given enough notice, given the right money, fair money. I won't say I need to be paid millions for fights that aren't worth millions, but fair money, and I will fight anyone. I mean, what are you in boxing for if you're not going to want to fight the best? You know, that's just my opinion, you know. And I mean, anyone on their given day can lose, and anyone on their given day can win. So I believe I'd back myself against anybody. So yeah.
Of course. And so, kind of just going away from the amateur side now and sticking with the pros. Why do you say you turned professional when you did?
Bit of luck, to be honest. A bit of I always wanted to go pro. I actually nearly went pro as an 18-year-old back in England when I was living in England. I got sick of the amateurs. I always had a pro style. I've always been quite rugged and strong and a forward fighter. So the amateurs were never really my. You know, I was never going to be an Olympic medalist. We'll put it that way. And I moved back to Ireland when I was 19. Then I moved back to the UK. I think I was 20, 21. And I got back into the amateurs. I said I was going to do a bit in the amateurs, get back into it because I've been off for about 2 or 3 years. Get back into the amateurs, do a year in the amateurs, and then go pro. Unfortunately, I got a very bad shoulder injury that put me out for 2 or 3 years. I had to move back to Ireland and stuff. And so I got back into the amateurs the end of 2019 in Ireland when I fixed my shoulder problems.
Okay.
And then obviously the beginning of 2020, I was getting ready to have my first amateur fight back. I think I was geared up to fight in, I think it was March, April time roughly. And then obviously COVID hit. Yeah. So I stayed training because I had fixed my shoulder problems. I didn't want to just stop training, you know, like different. It was different for lads that had been fighting. It was like a break to them. They enjoyed it. Because I didn't want that break. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. So I kept training, and I was living on the west coast of Ireland in Galway, and I seen a pro gym in Dublin. Well, it was summertime. I think it was about June. Still no amateur gyms in Ireland were open. And I seen a pro gym put up, they were sparring outside, you know, sparring out because it was summertime and stuff. So I said to my partner, I said, like, I'm mad to spar, you know, doing all this training, I was fit as a fiddle, and I wanted to spar, like, because that's why, you know, I love fighting, like, so I messaged the gym, O'Rourke's gym, and I give him a message, and he was kind of like, oh, you know, what's your experience? These are pros, these are good, blah, 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 blah. And anyhow, I went down, I showed him a few videos of me fighting as an amateur. I went down and I impressed. And and then he asked me to keep coming back down. And then after about 2 weeks, he said, would you be interested in going pro? And that was it, I haven't looked back since. So, yeah.
That's a great story. And so, am I right in saying in some of your early professional fights, you were fighting in abroad, in Spain and Belgium? What was that whole experience like?
Yeah, so my first 5 fights were abroad. They were the first one was Spain, the second one was Spain, the third one was Belgium, the fourth one was Spain, and then the fifth one was Belgium. And it was a good experience. It was a learning experience. It was, I mean, at the time it was COVID, so not a lot of shows. There was no shows in Ireland happening, none at all. There was very little in the UK, only the big, you know, Eddie Hearns and Matchrooms and Sky and, you know, the BTs and stuff, and they were all behind closed doors as well, and, you know, stuff like that. So again, I turned pro in what is probably the craziest time anyone could ever turn pro, in the middle of the pandemic. Like I made my debut on November 2020, which was the height of we went into lockdown. At that time, we were in Ireland. We were in a lockdown for 6 weeks from October to November. We were actually in lockdown when I had my first fight. We went to the airport, and it was like a ghost town. And I remember we had papers and we had everything that were why we were flying out of the country, and we were grilled by the guards over here, which is the police. We were grilled by them, like why we were flying, where we going, and even when we showed them the paperwork, they weren't satisfied, like. So yeah, that was it was interesting, and then just to fight abroad and stuff, you know, making weight and having to you know, get a flight out. Like one time I had to fly the morning of a weigh-in. Wow. Yeah, which wasn't the best experience, but it was an experience, you know, all the same, that I might have to call upon again later on as a pro and stuff. Not that I will ever fly in on that was just a bit of cheapskating, I think, on some people's part. But Yeah, no, it was good experience. Like, but it's good to be back home. Like, I had my first fight there in Ireland, up in Belfast, on
Hmm.
Mark Dunlop show, my manager, and yeah, it was great. It was on national TV here in Ireland on
That's great.
TG4, and yeah, it was brilliant. I got a good knockout, so it's good to be back. Like, as much as that was a good experience,
Mm.
I do prefer fighting in front of friends and family, like I think most people do. You know.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. And so, kind of out of the 6 professional fights, you are of course unbeaten so far. And out of them fights, which one would you say you've performed your best in?
It's a tough one because I'd say probably my last fight.
Hmm.
I probably performed the best in, but also my fourth fight, my first 6 rounder, I got dropped in the first round. It was my own fault. I fought a good journeyman whose game good. It was very awkward, but in the first round, a bit of inexperience. He kind of opened up swinging, and I've kind of got that mentality. If you start swinging, I start swinging, sort of, which is wrong. But I opened up too much and I was swinging a bit wild, and he
Mm.
caught me and dropped me.
Mm.
I wasn't overly hurt, like I wasn't badly hurt. I got straight back up and I was fine and stuff. But then having to adjust, it was my first 6 rounder. I was dropped in the first round, which I knew I lost 10-8 then.
Yeah.
So then I went back to the corner. He was like, "You're going to have to box. You're going to have to get on your feet. You're going to have to move." So that having to adjust in that fight and make them adjustments and kind of being under pressure of losing in the fight, I kind of feel like that may have been my best performance. But I guess from the outside looking in, most people would say my last fight because I dominated and knocked him out
Yeah.
with quite a nice KO in the third round to a fighter that not many people have done that. He is a journeyman, but he's fought around the circuit some decent fighters, and no one's kind of dispatched of him the way I did. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay, fair, fair. And so, you've kind of, I mean, you said you've been fighting since you were about 14 years old, and so you've been around the whole game for a while now. But what would you say currently is motivating you?
What's motivating me? Just the dream.
Mm.
Just the dream of getting to the top. The dream that I had when I started. I've always been an extremely confident kid. I've always believed in myself. I think that's my best attribute, the fact of how much I believe in myself, especially when people doubt you. It's actually people kind of, some people get frustrated or disheartened, or they feel discredited if someone doesn't give them the credit they feel like they deserve. I kind of enjoy it. If people think I'm not going to do much, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, it fuels the fire. So yeah, no, that side of things, I just guess just the dream. Yeah, just the dream drives me. I believe I can achieve everything in this sport. I believe I can reach the very top. I'm a big dreamer, and some people probably say I'm mad, and maybe I am a bit mad, but we'll see. I think I can reach the top. So that's the plan. Yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, that's a great mindset. And so, am I right in saying you're currently working with MHD Promotions?
Yes, that's Mark Dunlop. Yeah.
So, what's it like
Up
working
in
with them?
Belfast.
What is it like working with them?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I first linked up with Mark not last year, because again we're in the new year now. It would have been the end of 2021. I was due to fight on one of his shows. I was working with another manager at the time, and I was due to fight on one of his shows. I think it would have been I think it was September or October. Anyway, the show fell through because of COVID. Because COVID was still pretty affluent, the show fell through because of COVID. I kept in touch with Mark, and he said, look, I've seen your fights, you seem like a good fighter, I would like to have you on one of my shows. You've been easy to deal with, and so on and so forth. So we kept in touch and we kept talking. And Mark Dunlop, I've known for a while, in the sense of I've known of him because he was a manager of James Tennyson, who I used to follow as a fighter. I think he's retired now, but he was a great fighter to watch. I don't know if you've ever watched him yourself, but no, I loved watching him. I thought he was a brilliant fighter. He always came to fight, and he fought for world titles. And Mark Dunlop got him there. Mark Dunlop managed him from the start of his career, and he guided him to world titles. And I knew Mark Dunlop has good connections with Eddie Hearn and Sky, and he has good connections in the sport, and he's a good man. I had a lot of, we'll just call it politics going on outside of the
Yeah.
ring, and Mark dealt with basically everything for me, and even though at the time I was doing nothing for Mark, I hadn't fought for him, I hadn't given it, it was just because he knew, he obviously thinks I'm going to go places or whatever, but he worked hard for me when he probably didn't need to, and most people probably wouldn't have. So I think he's a good man, and I think he's a good manager. So yeah, it's a good working relationship for sure. He's a great man to be under.
That's great. And so I believe you're still on one of his cards for your next upcoming fight. And so is it February 4th, am I right in saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull off of that one. Unfortunately, I'm just I just got back off of a virus. I had a bad virus where I was in bed for a week, so I wasn't able to train. So I think I'm gonna have to come off of that card, unfortunately, and wait another month and get on a card in March, sometime in March or something. So unfortunately, it's not great, but there's no point going into fights that you're not 100% in.
Of course.
So.
Definitely, these things happen in the sport sometimes. And so, for anybody who's not watched you fight before, what would you say kind of makes you interesting as a fighter?
I'm pretty vicious, pretty ferocious. Like when I get in there, I'm exciting fighting. My I don't know if I call him my idol, but one of my favorite fighter of all time is Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
I'm certainly no Manny Pacquiao, but I bring an element of that excitement to the ring. That's when I watch fights, I want to watch fighters that are exciting.
Yeah.
So when I fight, I want people to watch me and think he's an exciting fight. I'd love to watch him again. That's when you see me fight, I want you to say, I'd love to see him again, or I'd watch him again. He's exciting. That's what I want. And sometimes that's probably not the best way to be or to think as a fighter, because you're probably open to getting caught with one or two more shots than you should. But that's the way I like it. So yeah, excitement.
That's great. And so you've kind of already touched on this, but just kind of how far do you think you can go?
The whole way, definitely. I believe I'll be not only a world champion, but I believe I'll be a multi-weight world champion. I believe I can unify if the politics allow it.
Yeah.
We see at the top of the sport, it's so easy to say, you can unify. Maybe you're good enough to unify, but maybe the position and politics that you're in won't allow it. But I believe I'll be a world champion, a super featherweight within. What am I? I'm 26 now. I believe I can be a world champion by the age of 30, 31. And then I believe I'll move up to lightweight, and I believe I can do the same up there, and I believe I'll be in. Obviously, lightweight is a great division at the moment as we speak. But down the line, I just think lightweight is one of them weights, like lightweight, welterweight, middleweight. They're always consistently good. They've always consistently got big names for whatever reason. So I believe down the line you'll see me in some mega fights, some big fights in America, big fights in the UK. I want to fight the biggest and the best names that possible. And yeah, that's the plan, and make a good bit of money in the process as well if possible.
Definitely, that's great. And so I'll leave with this final question, which I always like to ask. You've got a little bit of a platform here. Would you like to shout anything out?
Yeah, I want to shout out to my sponsors for helping me out through my fights. Turnkey Property Renovations, the Porterhouse, Harry's Bar, Melted in Galway as well, and Ard Seal as well. They've helped me out for a couple of my fights as well. Yeah, just sponsors that, my Monster Groundworks in London as well. My uncle, he's helped out for a few fights. Just everyone that's helped on the journey and stuff, and obviously shout out to my manager as well, Mark, who's doing great things for me, and I believe we're going to have a great working relationship and stuff. So yeah, just basically a shout out to everyone helping and everyone supporting,
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you very much for doing this interview, mate.
Nice one, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for your time.
And maybe a little bit further along down the line we can come back and do another one.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see why not.
Great, okay. Well, if you are new around here and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like video, and thanks for